So today we're going to be dealing with Pesach sheini, but not the usual teaching. Something a little bit unusual. So let's start with verse number 1. It says, Ele moadei Hashem mikrai kodesh. These are the holidays of God that are holy. Asher tikreu otam b'moadam, that you have to read them at the right time. בחודש הראשון, in the first month, ב-14 לחודש, in the 14th of the month, בין ה-40, פסח להשם, in the afternoon, you have to bring a sacrifice to God.
And by the way, you have also a problem here because it says בחודש הראשון. It doesn't say בחודש ה-12. That you're going to can go back. If you say, no, I'm not going to מעבר.
No, it's going to be the Adar. Adar is the last one.
Adar זה, okay.
Yeah. וב-15 יום לחודש הזה, and on the 15th day of this month, חג המצות להשם. It's going to be the holiday of matzot to God. 7 ימים מצות תאכלו. You're going to eat matzot for 7 days. You all know this. Rashi, פסח להשם. What does it mean? Pesach to God. הקרבת קורבן ששמו פסח. It means the Pesach sacrifice. That's the name, Pesach. Let's look at Numbers. So it says like this. ויהי אנשים, and there were men, אשר היו טמאים לנפש אדם. That they were unclean because of contact with a corpse. ולא יכלו לעשות הפסח ביום ההוא. They weren't able to do the Pesach on that day. ויקרבו לפני משה, they came in front of Moshe, ולפני אהרון ביום ההוא, they came on that day, ויאמרו האנשים המה, and these people said, אליו, to Moshe and to Aaron, אנחנו, pay attention to what the complaint was, אנחנו טמאים לנפש. They told him, we are impure. למה ניגרע? It says, why are we going to suffer because we are impure? לבלתי אקריב את קורבן השם במועדו, so that we cannot bring the sacrifice of God in its right time, בתוך בני ישראל. ויאמר עליהם משה, so Moshe said to them, עמדו, says, you know what guys, okay, stand, ואשמע מה יצווה השם לכם. I'm going to ask God what to do with you guys. Yeah, I'm going to ask God what to do with you guys. Let's continue.
One of the things that Moshe didn't know. Dance.
Yeah.
מילים לנפש, יש להתאמן למשהו אחר חוץ מנפש?
Yeah, many things. קרי, שרץ, נידה.
אבל זה גם לבלה לנפש או לא?
Different rules. There's different rules.
נפש זה לנפש.
Yeah, nefesh over here, when it says nefesh, it means somebody who's dead. So, let's see what God told Moshe. וידבר השם אל משה לאמור, and God spoke to Moshe saying, דבר אל בני ישראל, speak to the Jewish people, לאמור, איש איש כי יהיה טמא לנפש, a man, if he's going to be impure to a soul, או בדרך רחוקה, or he's going to be far away, לכם או לדורותיכם, whether it is this Pesach, whether it is next Pesachim, ועשה פסח להשם, so you should make the sacrifice to God, the Pesach sacrifice to God, בחודש השני. You can do it in the second month. ב-14 יום בין 40, he's got the next month, he can do it on then. יעשו אותו, he should be doing it, על מצות ומרורים יאכלו, and over there he's going to eat it on matzos and maror, לא ישאירו ממנו עד בוקר, he's not going to remain from him until morning, ועצם לא ישברו בו, and a bone you should not break in it, ככל חוקת הפסח יעשו אותו, and they have to have the whole laws of the first Pesach, the eating, the seder, are going to apply to the second Pesach. Okay. Before we even go, just a general question. Think about what was God thinking? What was God thinking? How many? We have 613 commandments, right? Yeah. God came to Moshe, and God say, I'm going to give you 612. I'm not going to give you 613.
Why?
Because he gave him 612. He didn't give him Pesach sheini. All of a sudden, Moshe complains, and then God says, okay, I'll add one. I'll give you 630. Obviously, that's not the way it was. God knew there was going to be 613 commandments. And it has to be. We know there's 248, it corresponds. God had the plan. So why go through all this process? Why are we going through all this process? Why can't he tell him from the beginning, look, whoever is going to be impure, come next Pesach and do next Pesach. Yeah, in a sense, simple. Why make it complicated? Why this specific mitzvah? Why couldn't he do it with other mitzvahs? Yeah. So let's do source number 3. We're going to try to understand who were these people that were asking. Yeah. Who were they? So there's ויהי אנשים אשר היו טמאים לנפש אדם, and there were people that were impure to the soul of man. אותם אנשים שנטמאו למת, מי היו? So these people that were impure, who were there? So in מסכת סוכה it says, ומשיבים, it says, you know who these guys were? נושאי ארונו של יוסף. You remember the Jewish people carried Joseph's, the whole story that they couldn't find Yosef when they left, and Yosef made them swear, and Serach bat Asher came, and she told him where Yosef is buried, in the Nile, in the coffin. But Moshe was responsible, but he wasn't the one who carried him on the shoulders. Yeah? Who's the one who carried him on the shoulders? Yeah, the 6 guys who's carrying Yosef from Egypt to Israel. Otherwise, there's no dead people in the, except Tisha B'Av. Yeah, that it's going. That didn't happen yet. We're not going to have. There's no dead people yet. So how did they get? Where did they come? Where did they get dead people? So they say the only dead person there was whom? Was Yosef. That they were carrying him from Egypt. שהלך עמם במדבר. אלו דברי רבי יוסי הגלילי. This is according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili. It says, who are the people? They're the guys who are carrying Yosef's coffin. Rabbi Akiva Omer. Rabbi Akiva says something different. Who were these people? Rabbi Akiva says, Mishael ve'el Tzafan hayu. They were Mishael and El Tzafan. Now, who was Mishael and Tzafan? Shayu skim benadav ve'avihu. After Nadav and Avihu passed away, last week's portion, Nadav and Avihu passed away, they were the one who buried them. Mishael and El Tzafan, they were the guys who buried them. שהרי הם שהוציאום כשנשרפו בקודש הקודשים. They took them out when they went into the Holy of Holies. Rabbi Yitzchak says, עוסקים באמת מצווה היו. It says, no, somebody died in the desert and they buried him. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All we're talking about dead people. Okay? So the Rebbe comes and says on page number 5, מה הביא לפסח שני? What caused this Pesach Sheni? כאשר בני ישראל יצאו ממצרים, when the Jewish people went out of Egypt, והיו צריכים לחגוג פסח במדבר. They needed to celebrate the first Pesach in the desert. היה אחד התנאים, was one of the conditions. God says, guys, you're going to make this Pesach sacrifice? We're under condition. What's the condition? שהקרבת קורבן פסח ועריכת הסדר לכל פרטיו, that bringing the Pesach sacrifice and doing the seder with all the details, יכולה להיות רק על ידי מי שאינו טמא, can only be performed by somebody who's completely pure, איש טהור, a pure person. ואז בפסח הראשון במדבר, and then in the first Pesach in the desert, year later, באו למשה רבנו כמה יהודים ושאלו, there were a few Jews who come to Moshe Rabbeinu and ask him a question. אנחנו טמאים לנפש אדם. The question was, we are impure. היות שלא היו יכולים לתאר לזמן המיועד, because they couldn't become pure for Pesach. They didn't have enough time. כפי שנדרש על פי הדין. Like it's recommended by the law. It needs 7 days, and the red heifer and the whole thing, it takes a process of 7 days. And it happened within 7 days. Somebody died. Somebody's father died. Let's take the last. He went to bury him. He needs to bury him. He doesn't have a choice. He needs to bury him. So they ask him, since we're impure, למה ניגרע לבלתי אקריב את קורבן השם? What are we at fault? So that we cannot bring the sacrifice of God. מדוע תיגרע מאיתנו האפשרות להקריב את הקורבן? Why we don't get the opportunity to bring this sacrifice? שהקדוש ברוך הוא רוצה שבני ישראל יקריבו. That God wants us to do it. As he said, במועדו בתוך בני ישראל, because it says you have to bring it in the right time. See, the Pesach sacrifice is the only sacrifice which is problematic. All other sacrifices, they could go around. For example, somebody did a sin offering. Right? He made a mistake. He needs to bring a sin offering. Or he wants to bring shlamim. He wants to bring a piece of... He became healthy. He was in a hospital. He became healthy. He wants to bring a peace offering to God. Right? He needs to. Not just wants to. He needs to bring a peace offering to God after a long illness. So he says, if he's impure, well, there's no problem. When you become pure, bring it. There's not a time to bring it. Over here, there's a problem. You have to bring it on that day, and that's it. It's not like even Korban Chagiga, yeah, you have 7 days. So if you missed on the first day, you can still bring on the other days following. A Korban Tamid, you send a representative. You don't have to be there. You're included. Even if you're impure, you're included in it. But over here it says, we cannot be included. We can't, like we learned today in the morning, if the guy is impure, you cannot tell them we're going to count you in. No, there's no counting you in. If the guy is impure, he cannot be counted. So it says, what did we do wrong? Why are we not in it? It's the only sacrifice where you don't have a possibility to do. So let's continue. So because of this complaint, this complaint brought שמשה הבטיחם לשאול את הקדוש ברוך הוא מה להשיב להם. Moshe says, you know what, I see your point. All other sacrifices you can bring, or you can participate in. Over here, that's it, you're done. You can participate in it. I'll ask God what to do. I'm going to ask God what to do. הקדוש ברוך הוא אמר, then he goes to God, and then God tells him, God says, שמכאן ולהבא, that from this point onwards, אלו שיהיו בלתי טהורים, those people who are going to be impure, ולא יוכלו להקריב את קורבן הפסח במועדו, and they won't be able to bring the Pesach sacrifice at the right time on the 14th of Nisan, נקבע עבורם זמן הקרבת קורבן פסח, חודש אחרי פסח, י"ד אייר. They can bring it the next month, exactly a month later. וזהו היום של פסח שני, and this is the second Pesach. ומאז כמדובר לעיל, and from that time, like we explained, חוגגים פסח שני בכל שנה בי"ד אייר. We're going to celebrate the second Pesach every year in the 14th of Iyar. This Friday is going to be Pesach Sheni. This Friday is Pesach Sheni. עד שאפילו בזמננו, until even in our time, לאחרי שבית המקדש נחרב ואי אפשר להקריב קורבן, now we're not bringing not the first sacrifice and the second sacrifice. We don't bring 14th of Nisan and not the 14th of Iyar, but still, nevertheless, 14th of Iyar, it's still a Yom Tov. What do you mean Yom Tov? מציינים זאת בכך שאין אומרים תחנון ביום זה. We don't say תחנון in the 14th of Iyar. This Friday, no תחנון in the morning. ובכך שיום זה הוא חגיגי משאר ימות השנה. We keep it like a minor holiday. עד כאן תוכן הסיפור בקיצור. So until here, we have all the facts. Now, let's see what's the problems. The next question, the Rebbe is asking, מהו המוסר שלמדים מזה? What's the message that God wants to give us from this entire story? It's a nice story that happened many, many years ago, but what are we going to learn from it? כאשר מתבוננים בטענה של אותם יהודים, first of all, we have to see the way they complained. The way they complained, those Jews, if you're a businessman, you're going to go to them and says, you guys don't know how to complain. And Jews are known to know how to complain. But if you see we're going to see soon, if you see the way they complain, he says, that's not the way you complain. You could have had much better complaint. Let's see. אינו מובן. כאשר מתבוננים בהתנאה של אותם יהודים, אינו מובן. When we look at the complaint, there's something we don't understand. התחלת טענתם הייתה שאינם טהורים. First of all, they come to Moshe, and they tell him, Moshe, you should know that we're impure. Right? In other words, right now they're giving Moshe ammunition Why? Why they can't bring the sacrifice? First, you should start with Moshe, we want to bring a sacrifice. Maybe you can find a way for us to be pure. That's a much better way to do it. Not to say the fact, Moshe, we're impure. So Moshe said, you're impure, so you can bring it. Finished. They're taking a chance that this is going to be the answer. It's like somebody coming to God and saying, God, you know, I have to put on tefillin, but I don't have an arm. I don't have an arm. I don't have arms. I was born without arms. So what's God going to tell him? So you can't put on tefillin. You don't have arm. The mitzvah is to put it on your hand. You can't put it on your hand. You can't put on tefillin. So you don't start this way. You don't start, I don't have... Yeah. ובתוך המשך וסיוע לזה, and as an addition to this, to the fact that they're not pure, what are they saying? הביעו את דרישתם לאפשר להם להקריב את קורבן הפסח. Now, in other words, because we are impure, this is what they're saying. Because we are impure, we want to bring the Pesach sacrifice. Huh? That doesn't make sense. Because you're impure, you want to bring the Pesach sacrifice? That's not the way you do it. The way to do it, if you're a good businessman and you want to negotiate, you come and you say, look, Moshe, we really want to bring the Pesach sacrifice. Can you find us something to do? You don't bring the negative aspect, the fact that you're impure. Maybe he has a way to purify them. I don't know what. בא בשעה שסדר הטענה היה צריך להיות להפך. If they would have said it the opposite way, it would have made much more sense. What's the opposite? לכל הראש היו צריכים להדגיש את העובדה שחייבים להקים קורבן פסח. They have to negotiate. First of all, it says, look, Moshe, God says it has to be brought in the right time, right? Moshe, we have a commandment. Every Jew has a commandment. The commandment is that we have to bring the right time. ולכן יש למצוא להם עצה לדבר. And you know what, Moshe, there's a problem going to be here. We're going to have a problem bringing it. You know, that we're impure. That's a better way to negotiate than the way they negotiated. למרות היותם טמאים לנפש אדם. So maybe you can find a way, even though we are impure, to make sure that we can still bring the sacrifice. That would be a much better way to negotiate the process. אלא שיש בזה משמעות עמוקה והוראה עמוקה. But now we're going to learn they were not stupid. They actually did it on purpose, this way. And we can learn something from the fact that they did this way. What can we learn? קורבן פסח נבדל מכל שאר הקורבנות. They were asking him a question not just about Pesach sacrifice. They were asking him a question about all of Judaism. There was a question over there that was hidden, not just about the Pesach sacrifice, about everything, about the whole Jewish tradition, about the whole Jewish religion, the question was. What are they asking? They're telling Moshe, look, Korban Pesach nivdal mikol shar korbanot. The Pesach sacrifice is different than all other sacrifices. It's different. How is it different? שיש בו מה שאין בכל יתר הקורבנות. The Pesach sacrifice is special. It has something that no other sacrifice has. What does it have? ישנם שלושה סוגי קורבנות. There are 3 types of sacrifices. קורבנות יחיד, sacrifice for the individual, for the person. שאדם יחיד מקריב כאשר הוא מחויב או מנדב קורבן. For example, a person had a good business deal, he wants to bring a Pesach sacrifice. Or a thank you sacrifice. That's a קורבן יחיד. Then there's a קורבנות ציבור. There's a קורבן, a sacrifice that belongs to the community, שמקריבים עבור כל הציבור, and that you bring for the entire congregation. You bring to the entire congregation. עבור כל ישראל יחד. The entire congregation brings it together. אך קורבנות אלו קרבים בית המקדש רק כדי נציגים. But not everybody goes there. There's one Kohen, every day, represents the entire Jewish people, and he brings the sacrifice. In other words, whether you're pure, whether you're impure, it doesn't matter. The Pesach, the Tamid sacrifice is been given. שלוחי הציבור שעושים זה בשם כל ישראל. You have a messenger, he does it in your name. But Pesach is neither here nor there. Why do I say so? קורבן הפסח, that's the third one. שהקדוש ברוך הוא ציווה, that God commanded, שכל יהודי חייב להקריב את הפסח באותו זמן ובאותו מקום עם כל בני ישראל. It says you have to do it together with the entire Jewish people. You cannot do it the day after, you cannot do it the day before, you cannot do it on the 13th, nor can you do it on the 15th. You have to do it when everybody else is doing it. That's it. There's no other. You cannot do it like Korban Yachid. You can do it whenever you want. Korban Tzibur, the guy does it whenever he needs for everybody. But over here, you need to do it together with everybody else. But as it says, you have to do it betoch bnei Israel, amongst the Jewish people. You have to be together with them. Klomar, which means בקורבן פסח ישנם שני עניינים גם יחד. When it comes to the Pesach sacrifice, we have two things. זהו קורבן יחיד. It's very strange. It's an individual קורבן. Each person brings it. כל יהודי מקריב את הפסח בפני עצמו, by himself, every Jew. ובא בשעה הוא גם קורבן ציבור. And it's also congregational, because everybody has to do it together. Not everybody can do it whenever he wants. Only one time to do it. We are all Kohanim, that we all bring it for a singular person. It's like very strange. שכל ישראל מקריב קורבן זה באותו זמן. That the entire Jewish people need to bring it at the same time. And now we're going to understand the question of what they're asking him. וזו הייתה הטענה של היהודים הנזכרים למעלה משה רבנו. This was the message of these Yehudim. You have to remember, these guys were special people. Either they were special because they were nominated to carry Yosef's coffin. Those are special people. Or they were Mishael Letzafan that took out Nadav and Avihu. Special people. We're not talking about children over here. So it says, what are they saying? So this is what they were saying. אנחנו טמאים לנפש אדם. This is what they came to Moshe and they said to Moshe, we're impure. We have a problem. The impurity is a problem. And what? It says it's impossible. Cannot be. What do you mean cannot be? Cannot be that God gave a commandment that some people cannot do. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that God says something in the Torah, and the Jewish people are not capable of doing it. It's like saying God can tell you, do not steal. But stealing for me is too hard. I'm going to steal. No, if God says do not steal, a Jew has the ability not to steal in every situation. So if God made the rule about the Pesach sacrifice, it has to mean that there's a way to do it. And the fact that we cannot do it shows that there's something wrong over here. It is impossible. They say it is impossible that God will bring to such a situation to give you a mitzvah and then you cannot do it. It doesn't make sense. We wouldn't do such a thing. God only gives you according to your abilities. In other words, if God gave us the commandment, it means we can do it. That's what they're telling him. And by the way, this is why Moshe doesn't answer them. You can do it, you can do it. What do you want from my life? Yeah, he could have said that. No, even Moshe felt it. If God gave a commandment, it means there has to be a possibility for people to do it. Over here, he's saying to some people, you can't do it. That's impossible. God would never do such a thing. הקדוש ברוך הוא קבע את סדר העולם באופן כזה, they're telling Moshe, God established the world in such a manner, שאצל עם עם מיליוני אנשים, that you have a nation with millions of people. It says, לא ייתכן שמזמן לזמן לא ימות מישהו על המצווה. It is impossible that somebody didn't get to the age of 120. Somebody is going to die. You've got millions of people. Somebody is going to die. בהגיעו עד לגיל 120 שנה. ככל שהקדוש ברוך הוא לו, or as much time that God gave him. ובפרט כשמדובר אודות עם גדול שנתברך על ידי הקדוש ברוך הוא שלא יספר מרוב, and specifically we're talking about not just this generation, all the generations that God promised we're going to have so many people that you won't be able to count us. ומדי יום ביומו נולדים ילדי ישראל חדשים, and every day there's new children who are born. הרי גם בלתי אפשרי שלא יהיה מקרה מוות של יהודי רחמנא ליצלן. Then it is impossible that some people are not going to die. Every day people are going to die.
Rabbi, it's only if you have נטמע לנפש. What if you are יולדת, ערב פסח יש לך baby. Can you do the korban? I was born in ערב פסח. No. And my mom would be, she has to wait 7 days to be.
Yeah.
So she won't be able, if I was born in Bet HaMikdash, my mom wouldn't be able to do the Pesach.
Yeah, but...
אבל אבל זה לא לנפש.
The tuma for nefesh is worse than other one, but you're right, she wouldn't be able to bring kodashim anyway.
The
Yeah.
nefesh included all of them because that's
Yeah.
why they go there.
It's a good question why it doesn't bring other examples.
Because they go from the...
And I'll tell you why it doesn't bring other examples.
the worst.
Yeah, the problem is not so much lanefesh, the problem is Pesach. The example is specifically from the Pesach sacrifice, because any other example she can become pure and bring the sacrifice. It's only the Pesach sacrifice she's going to have problems with.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
So the example, so he brings that example just from the Pesach sacrifice. He doesn't bring it. He could have brought it, the examples from a woman who gave birth. She cannot eat, I don't know. Forget Korban, she could bring the Chagiga. So Chagiga she can bring it later on, don't worry. Or this Korban, she can bring it from later on. Or after giving birth, she needs to bring Korban. She can bring it when she becomes pure. Korban Pesach, you can't. You have to bring it on that day. That's why he gives the example.
So,
Yeah.
right, but the Isha Yoledet...
She can do it. Just like the Tameh Met. Exactly the same.
It's included in it.
Yeah. בימי החלל פסח, it says it's impossible that somebody is not going to be not tameh, not impure at that time. ולכן הייתה הטענה, and that's what they were saying. מוכרחים להיות כאלה שביום זה יצטרכו לעשות אותו כמשפטו. It says, there are going to be people that on that day, they will need to do the Pesach sacrifice. There's a mitzvah for them to do the Pesach sacrifice, and they won't be able to. There's guaranteed it's going to happen. It's 100% going to happen. Any other sacrifice is not a problem. For example, if it's Korban Tamid, she can have a representative. It's her Korban, she can bring it later on. But what is she going to do with the Korban Pesach? That she can't do. ולהיותם טמאים לנפש אדם, and therefore they're impure for a soul of man, שניהם על פי תורה. He says, God is not going to do such a thing. They say it is impossible for God to do it in such a manner. ונמצא שהקדוש ברוך הוא עשה כאן שני דברים, and we find that God did over here two things, and two things that going against each other. One, he tells you have to do it in its time, and then he says you can't. הקדוש ברוך הוא ציווה שבי"ד ניסן חייב כל יהודי להקריב קורבן פסח בעצמו. God commanded that on the 14th of Nisan everybody needs to bring a sacrifice. לא על ידי שליח, and you're not allowed to use a messenger. ולצורך זה חייב להיות, in other words, maybe you're allowed to use the messenger for the shechting, but for the eating, you have to eat. ולצורך זה חייב להיות טהור באותו יום, and therefore you need to be pure that day. ובא בשעה העמיד הקדוש ברוך הוא את סדר העולם באופן כזה, and there's a guarantee that some people will not be able to do it. It's impossible. שבכל י"ד ניסן בהכרח שימצאו על כל פנים כמה ישראל שיהיו מחויבים על פי תורה לעשות דברים שיתלו מהם את האפשרות להיות טהורים בעת הזה. And there's going to be some people who are for sure going to be impure. God is not going to do it in such a manner. וזו הייתה טענתם. And this is what the message they told to Moshe. אנחנו טמאים לנפש אדם. This is what they told him. We are impure to the soul of man. In other words, עניין שהקדוש ברוך הוא קבע את סדר העולם באופן כזה, שבזמן זה מוכרחים להיות יהודים כאלו טמאים נפש אדם. In other words, it's not just us. It says it's going to happen in every generation. Jews are going to be impure. And those Jews are going to be impure. God commanded on them to do the Pesach sacrifices. How is that possible, Moshe? Explain to me. Explain to me how would God do two such things. It is impossible that God would give you such a law. He says, we refuse to believe that this is the law that God gave us. It cannot be. It cannot happen. It's going to happen every time. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. Why would God do such a thing? In other words, they're asking him. God will never. Yeah, it's a conflict. ואם כן, למה ניגרע? So it says, why are we, you're taking away the opportunity. מהי אשמתנו? What's our fault? שלכן לא נוכל להקריב את קורבן השם. להקריב את הקורבן שהקדוש ברוך הוא ציוונו. So, הקדוש ברוך הוא הכיר בצדקת טענתם. It looks like God says, guys, you're right. והשיב להם, and he said to them, שאי אפשר לקחת מהם את מצוות קורבן הפסח. I cannot take it away from you. You're right, guys. ועל ידי זה שהם הציגו את השאלה התווסתה עוד מצווה ויום טוב אצל בני ישראל פסח שני. And they actually created by asking a second holiday, פסח שני. So what's the lesson? Page 9. מזה מתקבלת הוראה עמוקה לכל אחד ואחד מאיתנו. And here is the message. The message is not Pesach Sheni. The message is Judaism. It's not specifically Pesach Sheni, but the entire Jewish ideas, every commandment in the Torah. רבים שואלים, many people ask, מצד אחד דורש הקדוש ברוך הוא שבני ישראל יהיו עם קדוש. It says, you want us to be a holy nation. If you learn Tanya, you want me to do a Beinoni, to be a Beinoni guy. God, right? I can't. I don't have the ability to. Me be a Beinoni? I can be a Beinoni? Forget about it. It's not happening. I don't have the power to be a Beinoni. Too hard. Right? God, in other words, we're telling God, you made a conflict. You asked us to be a good Jew. A good Jew means to be a Beinoni, and you made it too hard. We cannot be a Beinoni. Yeah? In other words, you demand from us to be a holy nation. That's what you demand from us, right? שיוכלו להכיר עליהם, and you want people to look at me, God, and people are going to look at me, and people are going to recognize that what? שהם מובדלים, that, you know what? This guy is different. People should look at me, and they should say, you know what? This guy is not, he's a mensch. This guy is a mensch. ונוהגים אחרת מכל עולות העולם, and we're going to do things different than all the other nation. For example, הם שומרים שבת. You know, some people tell us, it's impossible. My business, if I close on Shabbat, the type of business I have, I can't make a living. I'll die. I won't have enough food to eat. Forget it. I can't even pay the rent. I make 90% of my income when? On Shabbat. If I close the shop on Shabbat, there's no way I can. God, it's impossible. It's not going to happen. It's impossible. But nevertheless, you want me to be a Beinoni. You want me to close the shop on Shabbat. הם שומרים שבת, אוכלים כשר, we're going to eat kosher, ומקיימים כל המצוות שעליהם נצטוו. And every commandment that we are commanded to do, we command. We have 5 minutes of free time, we're not going to sit down and relax. We're going to open a book, we're going to learn Torah. Yeah? ומצד שני, it says, and God, this is one side of the equation. You demand for me to be a righteous person, a tzaddik, so-called. I have to act like a tzaddik. Yeah, maybe not be a tzaddik, but I have to act like a tzaddik. That's what you demand on one side. And on the other side, you know what the world is? מצד שני, העמידם הקדוש ברוך הוא במצב כזה, שמוכרחים להקדיש שעות רבות, and nevertheless, you made the Jewish people live in such a world that many hours every day, לעניינים שלוקחים מהגברים את האפשרות ללמוד תורה בשעות אלו. It says, if we're going to learn Torah, our wives and children are going to die. So you're making us go to work, you make us meddle with the physical world every day for many hours, ולוקחים מהאימהות את האפשרות להתמסר באותו שעה לחינוך הראוי של הילדים שבהם בירכם הקדוש ברוך הוא. And with some families also the woman has to go to work. Instead of educating the kids, you know what in order to eat, for this family to eat, you know what she needs to do? She needs to go to work. And where's the kids are going to grow? I don't know, in public school somewhere. And you know what they teach them in public school these days? ולוקחים מהנערות שאינם נשואות את האפשרות לנצל את השונות להתכונן כדי ביי לכך שלאחרי זה יעמידו בית עם את ישראל. And for the young women who are not married yet, instead of preparing themselves, learning the commandments, how to do the housework, they have to do some stupidities, whatever the stupidities that they do in our culture. בית בנוי ישראל תורה מצוות. So הקדוש ברוך הוא תובע מיהודי, in the end, God demands from a Jew, שבהיותו בעולם שברא השם, that even though I created this world, God says, and I know what the world looks like. It's not like I have a thing. In other words, God says, I created a contradiction. There's a contradiction here, I can see. On one side, I told you to be a righteous person. On the other side, I put you in the world with iPhones and this, and all the stupidities of the world. And I'm telling you, this and this. How is it possible? I cannot live in both worlds together. התנהג תמיד לפי התורה שלמעלה מהעולם. And you want me to always act according to the Torah that's above the world? How is that I'm going to do that? וזוהי ההוראה מהמענה של הקדוש ברוך הוא. And this is the teaching of פסח שני. אפילו אם נדמה, it says, it looks to us on many occasions that God, it's impossible. We can't do it. שלהיות בעולם ולקיים מצוות, that to be in the physical world and still be בינוני, and still do the right thing in the physical world, זה דבר כרוך בקשיים גדולים. It's something that is impossible. It's not going to be possible. If I live in the physical world, I cannot be a בינוני. I'm living in this world, how can you demand me being a בינוני living here? ובפרט כשמדובר אודות מצווה שמזדמנת אחת לשנה, and over here we're talking about, in Pesach sheini, we're talking about a commandment that we only have the ability to do what? Once a year. וכאשר לא היו יכולים לקיים מצווה זו באותו יום בגלל מנועים ועיכובים של העולם, and this is just one commandment, and when a person wasn't able to perform this commandment because the world was against him, it made him impure, it made the person impure, אזי נדמה שכבר אבוד. A person says, you know what, God, you're right, I give up. It's impossible. I can't do it. Even though you told me in the Torah that I can be a Beinoni, in other words, every commandment that God gave us in the Torah, He meant for us to keep. At least in action. If you don't want to do it in your heart, that's something else. But in action, it meant to keep. We can't come to God and we tell Him, hey, I can't do it. Or sometimes He will tell you to cover my mouth. But what do we learn from it? That yes, you can. Yes, you can keep it.
Even if you think you
even if you think you can do it, yes, you can. That's the message. Pesach Sheni tells you, you always can. There's no such thing as I cannot do it. And this is what we learned from them. They said, it looks like we're not going to be able to the Pesach sacrifice. And we want to do it. And God says, if you want to do it, you can do it. Same thing with us. It looks like I won't be able to close my shop on Shabbat because I won't have enough money. So God says, start closing it and you'll see that you can. After you ask, then I'm going to give. But if you're not going to come and ask and start doing it, it's not going to happen. It has to start from whom? It has to start from you. This is the message of Pesach Sheni. Exactly. You really want to go out of your way. Show me the way. I want to do it. God, I'm closing. I'm going to see what happens. I don't care. And then God is going to help. He's not going to help automatically. He's not going to show you. He's not going to give you the money on Monday. Yeah, before Shabbos. He's going to give you the money on the Monday after you close on Shabbos. That's what God says.
Here, this mitzvah actually, when you cannot do it, it's not dependent on you.
That's right.
Usually, the rest of the mitzvah, it does depend on you.
Also over here, this is your argument to God. It doesn't depend on you. You didn't make me a Benoni. I cannot do it. Some people. See, this is what people tell God. It doesn't depend.
I don't know the smart enough.
I don't have a good heart enough. I'm too lazy. I don't have enough energy.
I'm too good looking. All the girls come.
Exactly. Whatever the reason is. Exactly. Whatever the argument is going to be. עליכם לדעת, you have to know, שבאם יהודי רק רוצה באמת לקיים תורה, if he really wants to perform Torah and mitzvahs, ותובע, and it demands God, I really want to keep it. למה ניגרע? ימציא לו הקדוש ברוך הוא את האפשרות. God is going to give you the possibility to do it. You're going to see that it is possible. I can't be a בינוני. You'll push, you'll become a בינוני. שיוכל לקיים כל המצוות, ככל ישראל ללא גירעון. You'll be able to do all the commandments. There's not going to be one commandment that's going to be too hard. ואפילו אם בשביל זה יצטרכו לפעול דבר חידוש, and even if God needs to create something new, something that doesn't exist yet in the world. In other words, this type of business, God, it cannot. If you close on Shabbos, this type of business can never make enough money. God is showing, you close and I'm going to invent that this, for you something that it can. שלא היה עד אז יעשה זאת הקדוש ברוך הוא בשביל אותם יהודים אחרים שנמצאים במצב כזה, שבאופן אחר אנחנו נמצא. God is going to invent something new that you'll be able to do it. וזוהי גם ההוראה לזמננו. And this is the teaching also for our time. כאשר נדמה לפעמים, many times it looks like, שלפי כל החשבונות, according to all the calculations, אי אפשר בשום אופן להתמסר לחינוך הראוי של הילדים. We cannot give ourselves to raise the kids the right way. Maybe in the old time when you lived in Russia, in a village, the kids were next to you, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have the iPhones, you could have some influence over the kid. Today, the kid, internet, iPhone, how you want to influence him? How you can, it's impossible, it's not the same time as the old time. או להתכונן כדבעי לחיי משפחה יהודים, or maybe to prepare oneself to good Jewish life, או ללמוד תורה במידה ובאופן הדרוש, or to really learn Torah the right way that the person is able to learn. I can't, God, what do you want from me? I get up in the morning, 7 o'clock I have a job, or 8 o'clock I have a job, I come back home at 6 o'clock. When do you want me to learn? God says, if you will want to learn, you will find. If you will want to learn, you will find time to learn. There's no such thing. There's people who are busier than you, and they find time to learn. It is impossible to tell me you cannot do it. You just make a point to do it, and it will happen. I don't tell you to learn the whole day, but an hour throughout this day, you can find time to learn. Yeah, if there's a will, there's a way. Don't tell me you can't. כי כל זה הוא בסתירה לקיום בעולם. אין זה אלא דמיון של היצר הרע. It's your evil inclination that is telling you, I can't do it. Your evil inclination is telling you, I can't be a בינוני. וצריך רק לעורר בעצמו את ההחלטה העמוקה והאיתנה. All a person has to do is to make this decision. לא ייתכן שאני כל יחיד, איש ואישה זקן וצעיר. It is impossible. Every individual, man, woman, old, young, לא יהיה חס ושלום בתוך בני ישראל בכמה מציווי שם. The entire Jewish people need to bring Pesach Rishon all together. The entire Jewish people need to perform every commandment that it says in Torah. Don't tell me I can't do it. If somebody tells you you can't do this commandment, you're telling him you're a liar. This is the evil inclination. It's a lie. If I'll push, I'll be able to. But you need to push. Just like these guys pushed. If they wouldn't have pushed, God wouldn't have given. Everything was planned, as we know, yeah? But if they would, God wants us to push. It's not going to become easy. Yeah. It's not going to become automatically. It's not going to, after you push, then you get. ואז יראו, once you push, then you're going to see שהקדוש ברוך הוא נותן להם אפשרות מיוחדת לכך. That God is going to give us an opportunity to do all the commandments.